Because in school they will need to research, and the internet can be a useful tool, and giving them the access to be able to research in an open, accountable area will give them the opportunity to prove that they can be trusted.
Pastor Bryce here, and welcome back to 5 Minutes for the Family. I hope you enjoyed last week and found it helpful to know that there are other options besides the smartphone when providing your teens with technology that would be helpful for them to have. And as we said last week, we were going to take a look at this week how you can disciple your child and disciple your teen throughout the duration of their life so that they can be introduced to technology over time, so that by the time they reach adulthood, they would be prepared to enter the world of technology. And so some of the things we're going to talk about today, we've already talked about. And so today is just organizing some of those ideas so that they can be better and more easily put into practice. And so for anything that we are going to reference throughout this video, I'll mention it, and I'll also put a link to it in the description below so that if you haven't seen it and you'd like to go back and see it, or if you'd like to go back and review it, the link to that will be available for you. But in taking the steps to prepare your child and to prepare your teen to enter the world of technology, just like anything else, they need to be trained how to do it in the right way. And so step number one that we would like to propose today is take control of your home Wi-Fi. And we're not going to spend much time here because we've already talked about this in detail in a previous video. And whether or not you choose to use Circle or choose to use Covenant Eyes or choose to use some other program to take control of your home Wi-Fi, the fact remains that whatever you choose to use, you do in fact need to take control of your home Wi-Fi. And as I mentioned already, we talked about this in a video before, and so I won't spend much time here. I'll just put a link to that in the description below. Step number two that I would propose in training your child to use technology, and again, this spans the life of a child and teen. And so some of these things will go all the way back to when they were very young. And so step number two in training a child to use technology would be to introduce them to educational technology such as coloring and math games. I remember when I was a kid, I got a computer from my uncle, and the only thing this computer could do was play math games, grammar games, history games, and those kinds of things. And we loved it, even though ironically we didn't love doing our homework, and the computer asked us to do the same thing our homework asked us to do. Ironically, because it was a computer, we found this educational technology to be fun, informative, and helpful. Step number three is that there might come a time, actually there will come a time in your child's life where their interests bring them to a place where they need to learn something that you actually can't teach them. And maybe their interests are a little bit different than yours and they want to learn something and you don't know how to teach it to them. There are videos online that can help them to learn different skills. And so step number three is when you recognize in your child that they want to learn something, that you can go ahead and you can go out and you can select educational videos, and they can then engage in those educational videos in order to help them learn new skills that maybe they can't learn somewhere else. And so step number three would be to introduce them to educational technology in the form of videos selected by you. Step number four would then be to introduce them to a family desktop that is located in an open area in your home where everyone can see what they're doing. And when they first begin to use the desktop, maybe not give them access to the internet, but give them the ability to use word processing, to use Excel spreadsheets.
And these things are good for them. It's good for them to learn how to type. It's good for them to learn how to do Excel spreadsheets. It's good for them to fool around in PowerPoint. It's good for them to have child programs like maybe KidPix was popular when I was a kid. And I'm going to be honest, when it comes to kids programs, I'm not up on what is popular today. But some of those things are helpful for them in helping them to learn how to use a computer without the ability to access things that are on the internet. And so step number four would be to introduce them to a family desktop for writing projects, for Excel spreadsheets, and for those types of things. Step number five, and I'll put a link to it in the description below, is a step that we actually talked about last week. And it would be to, when they reach the age that you want them to have the ability to call you, for you to call them, and to use GPS functionality to know where they are, they can be introduced to technology such as the Gizmo Watch and dumb phones. Step number 6 is when they reach the point in their educational life where they need to do some research, would be to introduce them to Google searches. And again, when they're introduced to Google searches, those Google searches should be performed on a family computer in an open area with lots of accountability. Because in school they will need to research, and the internet can be a useful tool, and giving them the access to be able to research in an open, accountable area will give them the opportunity to prove that they can be trusted by engaging in Google searches over a period of time and them being faithful in that. It gives them the opportunity to prove themselves, and it gives you the opportunity to be comfortable with the fact knowing that they're in an open area with lots of accountability. Step number 7 would be if they reach a point where they want access to social media, and not just that they want it, but you agree with them and you say, you know what, in the world we live in today, a lot happens on social media, good as well as bad, but you want to teach them to be engaged in the good things. And so when they reach an age that you believe it is appropriate for them to be introduced to social media, I would propose that they have access to social media, but once again, only on the family desktop, which is located in an open, accountable area. And in addition to that, I would also propose that you have their password available to you as well. And that you have an agreement with them. Hey, if you're going to participate in social media, I want to have access to your social media accounts, and I will be checking in on you periodically. Because social media is more than things they post in their timeline or things that they tweet. There are also private messages that you need to check in on and make sure that they're being accountable with those things as well. Step number 8 would be to introduce a smartphone contract. And what I mean by that is when they reach an age that you would like to give them a smartphone because you realize that, you know what, when they become an adult, they probably will have a smartphone. And when you want to introduce them to that technology, maybe around the ages of 16 or 17, that you would have a contract with them, an agreement with them that says, hey, I'm providing you with this phone, and the purpose is so that you can learn how to use it wisely and to use it well and to use it faithfully. And so because that's the agreement, you have access to that phone. You have access to every single app in there, and you have permission always at all times to look through all text messages, all social media platforms, all apps, and to ask them specific questions about things that they're doing on any of those platforms. And the philosophy behind giving them that kind of technology before they leave your home would be that if they are going to be caught up in something inappropriate, it would be best for it to happen at your house so that they can be caught by you and so that you can disciple them through that. However, giving them a smartphone is never a wise choice if you have not taken the previous steps to introduce them to technology accordingly. And step number 9 would be a total graduation. And what I mean by that is not a graduation from high school, not a graduation from college, but a reminder that the second you stop checking in on their smartphone use, you've given up total control. Because the smartphone is not just a phone. It is a culmination of all communication technologies up to this point. It is the internet on the go. It is access to everything that is out there. And so the second you stop participating in a smartphone contract with them, checking in on them and making them accountable to you, then they have the ability to access anything and everything that's out there. And hey, there will come a time when they need to graduate, when they realize that faithful living, both in the world as well as online, has to include accountability. And so that part of that training would be, hey, if you're not going to be accountable to me as your parent, you need to be accountable to somebody else. Because that's part of faithful living, being above reproach and being able to say, hey, I'm above reproach. I am blameless. And you can ask so-and-so because they keep up on what I'm doing online. And I hope that information was helpful for you as well as your family. And next week, be sure to come back as we'll talk about keeping technology out of the bedroom as well as out of vacations. And we'll see you then.